Earlier this week, a California judge issued a temporary injunction against requiring cash bail. A lawsuit is circulating calling for the end of the cash bail requirement. Many say cash bail favors the wealthy. Other states are doing away with cash bail as well. Joining me now is Olay Olurin. She is a movement lawyer and political commentator, and she is family here on the Griot with Marc Lamont Hill. It's so good to see you, my sister. Help me understand this. I'm looking in states like Illinois, New York, California, and I'm seeing this conversation around ending cash bail. But what does it really mean?
You know what I think is interesting about all the debate and controversy that comes up around the end of cash bail with respect to big cities like New York City and Chicago and LA and places with high black populations and places where there are disproportionately black people incarcerated. Meanwhile, the cash bail system, actually the first place to actually start this and spearhead and eliminate cash bail was New Jersey in 2014 under Republican Governor Chris Christie. So they got rid of their entire cash bail system in 2014 and it's gone smooth swimmingly, and you've not heard the same rhetoric that gets proposed when they talk about it in New York City. But the reality is ending cash bail is something that needs to happen because the cash bail system is the antithesis of what America presents its legal system as. Because there's no presumption of innocence in a country where over 400,000 people are incarcerated awaiting trial. They have not been convicted. They have not had a trial. The only reason why they're incarcerated is because they do not have money. And that's also what leads to so much plea deals and so much corruption and injustice we see in our criminal system. It starts at the cash bail system.
So this is important. There are people, though, who will say to you, Attorney Olurin, if we don't have cash bail, then what's to stop somebody from not returning to court? What's to ensure that the person will actually be held accountable through the criminal system if they can just bounce out of jail that night and never come back again?
So I would say I would use real life examples. Well, the reality is bail. It's important. Even in that premise, I really do appreciate that in that premise, that person would be recognizing that the purpose of the bail system is to make sure that people return to court, not to punish people for things they've not been convicted of yet. So in New York City, our failure to pay a rate, more than 98% of people return to court. And it was pretty much that high before we got rid of cash bail. We got rid of it in certain respects. We still have a cash bail system, but we eliminated many of the charges that can be held cash bail on many misdemeanors and nonviolent offenses. And since getting rid of that, people have returned to court more. So I would say all the statistics, all the data all around the country, and every place that has radically transformed their cash bail system and where they've gotten rid of it, they found that more people return to court without the system.
So if cash bail doesn't return people to court, although that's the intent of it, how do we also think about these other ways that cash bail is used? I remember when we were protesting in Baltimore after the killing of Freddie Gray, and people said, why is that police officer only getting X number of dollars in bail? We need to triple it to show how much black life is worth. There's a way that bail has become also used as a kind of punishment or a reflection of how bad, how heinous we think a crime is. We did the same thing when George Floyd was killed. When all these people are killed, we're saying, triple the bail, make the bail $1 million, $10 million. It always seemed like a bad idea to me.
It is a bad idea. The problem is in those scenarios is we basically are calling for them to ratchet up a system that is only used against us. I had this conversation with a friend of mine the other day when I said, as a defense attorney, as a public defender, I represent anybody accused of any crime. The only thing I could see myself having a moral qualm to representing is white supremacy, and I would never have to make that decision because they don't prosecute white supremacy. You don't see white supremacists and people come in for those reasons. When you do see that happen, we have to protest and we have to call for those charges in the first place, right? So it's a mistake to say, oh, we want them to create a stricter bail system. We want stricter laws. We want these hate crime laws, because the reality is those things on a regular day-to-day basis, which you see in and out of the criminal system, they're only going to be applied against you. And it doesn't matter the dollar sign you put on police officers and white supremacists, because they will always raise it. That's the reason why they raised the money for Rittenhouse. It's the reason why they just raised the money for Daniel Penny. So there's no purpose of trying to weaponize a criminal system that's there to protect those people against those people. They will only find a way to circumvent it and use it against you down the line.
What do we do when someone's really violent, really a threat to society? Someone's been doing sexual assaults in the neighborhood. Someone has been molesting children. Someone has been shooting people. Now, I'm not saying we should let them bail out, because if they're dangerous, they're dangerous. But should there be a system to keep people behind bars who pose a threat to society? Or should the presumption of innocence mean nobody stays behind bars until trial?
Well, the reality is, I guess we don't really have to talk about should be's, because the reality is there is no jurisdiction in America that does that. In every jurisdiction, whether or not there be a cash bail system or without it, they remand people for that. If you get arrested and you're accused, if they know they have video evidence, they're aware that a person is around the place committing crimes, they're going to be remanded. Bail isn't going to be set on them at all. So if you take a jurisdiction like New Jersey, where they have no cash bail system, what it means is you sit in jail pending your trial. So if you're accused of murder, you're accused of shootings, you're accused of these violent crimes, and they have actual evidence put forward towards that, they're just going to sit you in jail pre-trial anyway, regardless of how I feel about it or what I think should be done. So it's just not actually a concern. What happens is our regular bail system, the bail determinations are not based on the seriousness of the crime or the dangerousness or protecting people. That's not the standard, and it shouldn't be the standard for a number of reasons. But the system, all it means is that poor people don't have the money to pay their bail and rich people can go home. And that's why we have a criminal system where over 80% of the people incarcerated made less than $12,000 annually, live underneath the poverty line. So we're just criminalizing poverty with the system we're maintaining.
Wow. We always brag about the United States saying that we don't have debtors' prisons, right? That we're not like the old days or like other countries. But if people are in jail around the country simply because they don't have enough money not to be in jail, if they haven't been convicted of a crime and they have the presumption of innocence, then by a legal standard, there's a bunch of innocent poor people in jail, while, as you said, rich people are outside. That feels like a fundamental thing that we should change. I got to run, but why isn't that logic persuasive to most American people? I mean, it seems obvious to me.
Because they're taught to believe in it. It's presented to them as a justice system, and we're taught to think of our criminal system functioning like that, the way that we are taught to think of water and air. People think there is no other way that it can work, so we have to contend with what it is. But then we're not exposed to the reality that this is a man-made institution, these are poor policy choices, and that there are countries that are not investing in these kind of punitive systems and preying on their poor and their citizenry. So it's just a matter of exposure to different ideas.
Olay, thank you so much for joining me.